Hey everybody, looking to get the absolute best video quality in Zoom? I got some tips for you. Hey everybody, David Paskin here, Torah Tech Guy. All right, so you want to have the best video quality in Zoom. The first thing we have to do is we have to talk about what do we mean by the best video quality. To me, there are two different aspects we have to think about. First is resolution. Second is frame rate. Here's how I understand these terms. Resolution means how crisp is the video, right? Is it fuzzy or blurry? Can you see good definition of the different people or objects in the video? How crisp is the video? And that's where we talk about things like HD, 720p, 1080p, all the different Ps, right? High definition video. The second is frame rate. Frame rate for me is how smooth is the video. So is there jerkiness if there are moving pieces in the video? If maybe someone is on screen moving like I am, or if you're playing a video into Zoom and there's some action in it. How smooth is that movement and that action? So resolution and frame rate. Now, Zoom deals with these two aspects of video quality differently. When you are just in Zoom as a participant, whatever you're feeding into Zoom, Zoom is going to prioritize resolution. No, I got that backwards. Sorry. When you're just in Zoom as a participant, Zoom is going to prioritize frame rate. Why? Because you are a human being and you move. And so it wants to make sure that your movements are smooth. When you're screen sharing in Zoom, it's going to prioritize resolution. Because the assumption is if you're screen sharing a PowerPoint or a keynote or something, there's text on the slides, and you want people to be able to read that clearly. So the resolution is going to be prioritized during a screen share. Now, what I do with Ecamm, and I've read a lot of folks in Ecamm struggling with this, is that we don't screen share at all. We just bring text in over our video quality, over our video like this. So the question is, how do you get this kind of stuff to look best in Zoom? And for the rest of us who are doing screen sharing, how do you get that to look fantastic also? All right, so let's talk about some of the tips that are going to help you out here. First of all, make sure you have an HD camera. An HD camera, a high definition camera, you have to make sure that you're starting with a camera that can give you HD quality. I'm going to be honest with you. I think it's going to be really hard for you to find one that won't. An exception to that rule may be using the webcam built into your computer. Not all those webcams, certainly not all the older webcams on computers, have high definition. By the way, high definition is really 720p or 1080p. Those are kind of the two levels that we're going to be talking about. You want at least a webcam that can do 720p, absolute minimum. My personal favorite webcam right now is the Insta360 Link. Fantastic webcam. It's actually 4K, which is more than you'll need, but really good webcam. Second thing you're going to need, good lighting. This has nothing to do with the camera or the computer. If you have good lighting, that will make a big difference in the video quality of you, the human being, in Zoom. So if you want to make sure you look better, an HD camera and good lighting. If you're also bringing text in or slides or images or you're screen sharing, there are some other considerations. Bandwidth. That means what are the internet speeds that you're dealing with, that you can get stuff down from the internet and send stuff up to the internet. If you go to speedtest.net, or if you're an Ecamm user, there's a speed test built right in. You can check your speed up and down. Basically, you should have at least 5 or 10 up to get a good quality stream. If you're hovering around 1 or 2, that's going to be tough. If you can get 5 or 10 gigabits up, so that's your upload speed, you should be pretty good to go. Next, a capable CPU and GPU. The CPU is your computer processing unit, and the GPU is your graphics processing unit. I hope I did those acronyms correctly. I know the first one is computer, the second one is GPU, is graphics rather. Both of these in your computer need to be able to handle sending a strong signal and processing that high definition video. So if you've got an older laptop or you're just using a Chromebook or something, you're not going to get high quality. If you're using a newer Mac or a newer PC that has an i5 or an i7 on the PC side or an M1 or M2 on the Mac side, you should be okay with your CPU and GPU. You may want to check that out though. Next, do you have Group HD enabled in Zoom? Now, there are a couple of steps to make this work. First of all, you have to ask Zoom. Zoom by default only gives you your resolution about 360 to 480. That's really poor. That's really, really terrible resolution. But if you ask, if you have a pro account and you just email Zoom support and you say, hey, I need 720. I'm doing productions. I'm teaching classes. I'm doing whatever. They will give it to you. They'll give it to you. Then you need to enable it on the back end, and I'll show you how to do that in just a moment. Next, make sure that Zoom is full screen. Here's one of the interesting things about Zoom. Zoom will only give you what you ask it for. So if you have Zoom in gallery view, for example, where you have lots of people in little tiny squares, it's not going to send you a great resolution for each of those squares because they're all really little. If instead you have Zoom full screen, then you are going to receive the highest quality possible. And that goes for your participants too. If you're a teacher, and this is part of the challenge here, is that we don't have control over all of this. If your participants are not watching full screen, or if they're not watching in speaker view, they're not going to get the highest quality. That's where spotlighting comes in handy, because spotlighting forces people to view speaker view. They can always switch it back. They can toggle back, but it pushes everyone into speaker view. It won't make them full screen, but it'll get them into speaker view. So what if you're screen sharing? Well, let's talk about a couple other things that you can do. First of all, full screen presentation. Make sure whatever you're sharing is taking up at least one full screen, not more than one full screen, but one full screen. Here's why. Zoom is going to send, again, it's going to send not only what you ask for, but what you give it. This is why you need an HD webcam or an HD camera, a mirrorless camera, because if you're not giving Zoom a high definition, a 720p or 1080p or 4K signal, it's not going to send that. If you have a tiny little window that you're sharing and you're sharing that into Zoom, it's going to send the resolution of that tiny little window. So if you've got a 1080p monitor, which I think most monitors now are at least 1080p or 4K, make sure it's full screen. If you've got a 4K monitor, yeah, you could make it a little smaller and put it in one of the corners. But rule of thumb, I would say, whenever you're sharing anything in Zoom, make sure it's full screen. And finally, use large and clear font if you have to use font at all. This right here, too many words. Too many words on the screen. I'm going to get rid of these. All right? Too many words on this screen. You shouldn't have that many words in your presentation. You should be giving the words, speaking the words, not writing the words on the screen. Whatever you're sharing into Zoom should be a visualization to help you teach what you're teaching. It shouldn't be the actual lesson. All right, let's talk about Group HD. So I'm going to go here into my Zoom account. So I've just gone to, I'm going to start from the very beginning. Ready? Zoom.us. So here I am. I'm going to log into my account. And now here, oh, that's actually the wrong account. You know what? I'm going to sign out of this. I mean, it doesn't matter. I could do it on any account. But I'm going to sign into my actual account, which I do through Google. And then once I'm in the back end, now remember, you have to start by asking Zoom to enable this. Once I'm in the back end, I'm going to go over here to my settings. I'm going to click on settings, and it's going to bring up all my settings over here. Now on the left-hand side, I've got a couple options. I've got in-meeting basic and in-meeting advanced. If you want to, you can just scroll through here and you'll eventually find it. But the quick way to get there, click on in-meeting advanced. It'll immediately pop you down. And if you scroll down just a little bit more, you will see Group HD video. You will see this once they enable it for you. Once it's enabled, click whichever one you have. Now, I have both here because I'm on a business account, but if you're on a pro account, you'll have standard HD 720p. If you're on a business account, you can ask them for full HD 1080p. 1080p is the number of pixels across, up and down. It's technically 1920 by 1080, so it's 1,920 pixels across by 1,080 pixels vertically. Standard HD is 720p. So that's, what is that, 12 something by 720? I don't even, 1080 by 720 maybe? I don't remember. You get the idea. One smaller than the other. For what it's worth, there isn't a tremendous jump between 720p and 1080p. There's a noticeable jump, but not a tremendous jump. But between what Zoom by its nature gives you, 360 or 480p and 720, there's a big leap in quality there. Once you enable this, you don't have to do anything else. It will just enable HD for you, and your meetings will immediately look a little better. Now, if you're bringing in text like I am here, right, you can see just by this little share that I'm doing here, it's not easy to read this. And that's because it's really small content. That's why make sure whenever you're sharing something that it's clear text, it's big. You shouldn't be using when I'm sharing, creating a keynote or something to share in Zoom, my font is usually between 48 and 100 points. It's big, which means you don't have a lot of words, which is the way it should be. So bear in mind all these different pieces, right? You've got your HD camera, you've got good lighting, you're going full screen in Zoom, you're going full screen on your presentations, using large lettering, you're enabling group HD. All these different pieces will help your Zooms look better. If you're using eCam, all these rules apply. All of these rules apply. But there's something we all just need to kind of accept, and that is that we don't have control over all of this. Because let's say, for example, you have a business account, a fancy schmancy education or business account, and you're sending 1080p, the highest quality video you can in Zoom, and your participants are watching on a phone. Guess what? They're not going to get 1080p. Or maybe you have participants watching from a browser. They're not going to get 1080p. And because they're not getting 1080p, no one else is either. Zoom will only send out one HD feed, the lowest one that is required. I should say the highest one that people can accept. Phones and not desktops, browsers can only receive 720p. And so since they can only receive 720p, Zoom is going to only send 720p, which means everyone is only going to get standard HD, which again is not the end of the world. But we can do all of this work on the back end, and still, I think a majority of my participants end up watching on an iPad or on a phone. I have no control over that. And that is going to limit the quality that they receive. I will say that in Zoom's defense, the trade-off is stability. You're right. There may be fuzzy edges. You're right. You may have to use a larger font than you might otherwise have to use. If you probably won't if you've taken all these steps I've outlined, but you may. But the stability that Zoom offers is not rivaled by any other platform that I've used. So there are trade-offs. Get a camera, get good lighting, make everything full screen. My fix, by the way, for the full screen thing, because I don't want it taken off my full screen, is I got extra screens. Just buy yourself it doesn't have to be a fancy, buy yourself a little tiny 4K screen, attach it, put Zoom full screen on it. Put your presentation full screen on it. Easy peasy, right? Enable Group HD. Contact your Zoom representative through the customer support. Say, I need 720p, please. Make sure to toggle that on in the back end. And then really, let's pay attention to what we're presenting, making sure that it's not too verbose, that we're using images and pictures instead, not like I did today with all the text on there. But all those different pieces are absolutely vital to making sure that we are giving the best presentations that we possibly can and getting the best video quality that we possibly can out of Zoom. If you want some more tips like this, I want to invite you to head on over to my website, TorahTechGuide.com. By the way, next week, I'm going to be talking about getting the best audio quality out of Zoom. There are some important things to note there. Oh, one thing I forgot. Here's how you know that in screen sharing, Zoom is going to prioritize resolution over frame rate, right? Remember, resolution is clarity, frame rate is smoothness. It's going to prioritize resolution because, again, it's assuming that you're sharing text, you're sharing a web page or a presentation. The reason we know that's true is because there's a little toggle at the bottom of your screen share window that says, I don't remember exactly what it says, make appropriate or enrich for video. When you click that, it says, he's going to have or she's going to have a video in here. I also need to pay attention to frame rate. I have to pay attention to both. So that's why you're likely to get better quality when you're screen sharing in Zoom, which I don't recommend doing, but that's why you're likely to get better quality when you're screen sharing, certainly in certain circumstances. Screen sharing because it is taking care or it's paying attention to both the resolution and the frame rate. It's trying not to have to compromise on either of them. So that's what I got for you. Next week, we're going to talk about the best audio quality in Zoom. I hope to see you then. Until then, have a fantastic rest of the day. And hey, by the way, happy Purim.